The NBA draft is now less than a week away, and when the night finally goes down, fans of their teams will be welcoming a fresh new face into their franchise, hopeful that he can help make them better in the future. However, sometimes it's difficult to gauge what exactly a player brings to the table, so in today's video, we'll be doing something to help in that regard. Today, I'll be going through the top prospects in this year's draft class, and I'll be giving the most realistic and accurate player comparison for them. Comparisons aren't meant to be an exact one-to-one perfect match, but they're meant to demonstrate to you important traits that the two players share that could impact how they play at the NBA level. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. We'll start things off with the man that has been dominating headlines for well over a year now, being Victor Wembanyama, and the closest player comparison I could come up with for him is Anthony Davis. Now, with Wembanyama, there really isn't any direct player comparison you can make with strict accuracy, because the fact of the matter is that we have never really seen a player quite like him before. Wembanyama towers over pretty much every other player that possesses his amount of skill, but I like the AD comparison for a few reasons. Defensively, Wembanyama has quick feet, making him very agile and mobile, and he can play both power forward and center on that end, projecting as an all-defense member in his prime, as Davis has also been for years. Offensively, Davis may not have Wembanyama's range out to the three-point line, but he's had a terrific face-up game in the mid-range, along with a crafty handle for someone his size, and from what we've seen, Wembanyama, he's not afraid to take guys off the dribble either. Davis came into the NBA very skinny, needing to add muscle. Wembanyama is doing the same, but overall, Davis is a champion and multiple-time All-Star and All-Defense member, and Wembanyama should be able to go down a similar path. The next prospect up is Scoot Henderson, and the player comparison I like for him is Derrick Rose. When I say Derrick Rose, I'm talking about the Bulls version of Derrick Rose pre-injury. They're both a similar size, they both were blessed with truly elite athletic gifts, being able to explode past defenders and attack the basket with force. They both have a nice pull-up jumper and good touch in the paint, and they are both players who were taking solid strides forward as playmakers for those around them, without it necessarily being the best part of their games. Even the weaknesses are similar, as Rose early on wasn't really a very good three-point shooter, but he showed potential to improve, and while Scoot right now is not a knockdown shooter, he is decent from beyond the arc. This version of Derrick Rose was able to win an MVP in that era right before the three-point revolution began, so I'm not saying that Scoot is about to be a bona fide MVP, I am saying that he should have clear all-star upside, and I truly believe he's talented enough to have gone #1 overall in several other recent drafts. This year just so happens to have a guy like Wembanyama holding down the top spot. The next prospect up is Brandon Miller, and the player comparison I like for him is Danny Granger. Brandon Miller is a 6'9" forward who can shoot the lights out when he gets hot, and that's the kind of prospect that will obviously get a ton of attention on draft night. Danny Granger also happened to be a 6'9" wing player who in his best years was shooting the ball 40% from 3, and he was named an All-Star in 2009 when he averaged about 26 points per game. His ability to comfortably pull up off the dribble and shoot over a defender is going to be a very useful skill at the next level. He's a threat off the ball as a spot-up guy, and defensively he is very sound, as well making him a tantalizing two-way player. It was hard to find a perfect comparison for him because a lot of wings that shoot as well as he does aren't as good defensively as he is, and a lot of the better defensive wings can't shoot like him, but Granger is a good place to meet in the middle. The next prospect up is Asar Thompson, and the player that he compares to at the next level is Ja Morant. Asar is admittedly a bit taller than Ja Morant is, but in terms of playstyle and athleticism, there's a lot of similarities that are hard to ignore. Ja Morant has an argument for being the most explosive athlete at the point guard position, and Asar Thompson is also easily the most explosive athlete in this year's draft. Like Morant, he uses these gifts to relentlessly attack the basket and finish high above above the rim, but he's also so fast in the open floor, he's got terrific court vision and sets his teammates up around him for good looks, and his ability to switch speeds on demand can make him tough for any defender to stay in front of, which is also what makes Morant so tough to guard. Next up is Asar Thompson, and the player comparison I like for him the most is Andrew Wiggins. Eamon is more of the playmaker in the brother duo, while Asar is much more of a scorer by nature on the wing. When Andrew Wiggins was coming out of college, he too had a lot of similar attributes. Wiggins is a 6'8" wing, Asar is a 6'7" wing. Wiggins was a naturally gifted scorer with the physical tools and athletic prowess that shined through above all of the other prospects, and as I mentioned with Eamon, Asar is also an outrageously gifted athlete who explodes around the basket. Even regarding the weaknesses, Wiggins was a streaky perimeter shooter at best early in his career, which is exactly what Asar is right now, but with enough work, there's room for improvement, and after winning the MVP award of the Overtime Elite League this year, he's been turning a lot of heads in the NBA world. The next prospect up is Cam Whitmore, and the player comparison I like the most for him is Miles Bridges. If you haven't noticed by now, this year's draft is filled with guys that have got bounce for days, as Whitmore is also someone that can get up there as well as anyone. He, like Miles Bridges, is a big and strong wing player who uses his power around the basket on drives to finish through contact and get to the rim, and also like Miles Bridges, he's a capable shooter from the perimeter, but not necessarily a consistent shooter from the perimeter. Defensively, they actually have similar profiles too, because when it comes to on-ball defending, they both hold their own and are pretty solid, but off the ball, they can get caught being a bit lazy, and teams can take advantage of that. So Whitmore just needs to work on staying locked in all the way through possessions, but will be a solid two-way contributor over time. And finally, the last prospect we'll be discussing today is Jairus Walker, and the player he compares to at the next level is Paul Millsap. Walker is an interesting prospect to watch, as he's more of a jack-of-all-trades type of player ready to produce in a number of different ways. He's a slightly undersized power forward, just as Millsap was. His versatility as a defender is easily the most impressive part of his game, which is also very similar to Paul Millsap, who was named to the all-defensive team in his career, and they're both aggressive rebounders, despite the fact that they're undersized. Walker is also very smart, with good feel and vision, but he's not quite the playmaker that Millsap was, nor is he the shooter that Millsap was. But again, these comparisons aren't meant to be exact one-to-one perfections, and Walker can absolutely improve in those two areas over time. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who these players remind you of. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.